The Blockchain New Zealand podcast is brought to you by Easy Crypto. 5 years ago, a passionate bunch of Kiwis created Easy Crypto in New Zealand to enable Kiwis and others to buy and sell cryptocurrency. The Easy Crypto website is simple and straightforward. They have heaps of great educational content that caters to both beginners and experts and are very transparent about fees. You can buy crypto with New Zealand dollars or with your credit card and get crypto sent directly to your wallet. Investing in cryptocurrency can of course be risky, so always do your own research. Visit easycrypto.com to start your crypto journey today. The whole list, I printed the whole white paper and have been
oh my god,
combing through it, marking things where I need clarification. No, I'm kidding. Joerg, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in on your drive this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers. I wanted to start just really broad, general question, and then we can sort of get into specifics and details of what you're up to. But how did you get into search?
Oh, that's a really good question.
And you can go back as far as you want to.
It's not that far. So a couple of years back, I founded the business that is called darkscope. And darkscope is a cyber intelligence business. And for us, or for darkscope to be able to help customers, I needed to develop a search engine. So that's a different kind of search engine. It's a dark web search engine.
Okay.
But at that point, I was actually thinking it would be really good to have an alternative to what we have on the market now. And that sparked my idea of where we are today, basically. Yeah.
And so what's darkscope then?
Darkscope does cyber intelligence. So it helps businesses to identify weaknesses in their cybersecurity by analyzing what is already out there. So the biggest risk in cybersecurity is everything that is out in cyberspace. And in order to get visibility, we needed to find a way to go through the dark web to find information about customers, and that's where the search engine was developed.
And so, like, is that difficult to go like the dark web? They don't have like human readable URLs and things like this that you can crawl through.
Yeah.
And so, like, what are the challenges there?
It's a lot. Has a lot to do with barriers. So barriers of entry. They want to make sure that you are a human. You know that from the internet. Are you human?
Sure.
And on the dark web, it's a lot more. And that's where we did develop AI models for that and stuff like that. So it was basically, it's not a typical search engine, but it's still from a functionality search engine.
And is that still running? Are you still working on that?
Yeah. We are. We got high tech awards twice and stuff like that. So yes, it's doing well.
And so, like, who are your potential clients for this? I'm imagining it's just law enforcement that's interested in this sort of thing.
Any business who wants to know what's their risk. So it's really, we have small businesses, we have banks, of course, insurances. So it's a broad customer base. So
is that like risk? Where is the risk here if you're like a normal business or if you're like an insurance company?
Yeah.
You're talking cybersecurity type of risk. So risk that potentially, that you're going to be hacked?
Yeah, I mean, today, every cyber attack is a targeted attack. At least the good ones are. And targeted means the attacker needs to know about your business. So they need to find out who you are, what you do, what's your staff and stuff like that. And all this information are often available on the internet, dark web, social media. So before an attacker attacks your business, they will create a profile out of you and they will use all kinds of information. Darkscope does the same. It just shows you what is out there so you can actually create your defense around your risk. So the biggest challenge in cyber is you don't know what it is you protect against because you don't know your risk. And that's what we do at darkscope. We basically solve that.
Okay. And so then you're providing someone with this risk assessment. You say, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
There's potential for all of these weaknesses in your organization, and you need someone to go patch them up.
People or your whatever it is. Yeah.
Okay. And business as well. Business is good.
Yeah, it's doing really good. Yes, it's we just ventured into United States market.
Okay.
We are in Europe as well, so it's an international business basically.
You've been involved in this sort of cybersecurity side of things for a long time?
For 25 years at least, yes.
All right, so that's a good fraction, of any human life. That's getting up there in terms of a high fraction.
Yeah.
And so what have you noticed as systems get more complex, as more and more people put everything online, as more and more businesses need to absolutely buy and sell and contact everyone online? Like what have you noticed in terms of general cybersecurity?
It's getting more complex, yes. More and more is outside available. We use more cloud services. The attackers getting better, so they now invest more time in really finding information about their next target. It's not this widespread, I'm the prince from South Africa. It's now really targeted.
Okay.
And that makes it really hard for businesses to defend against.
And so something that would be super critical would be like infrastructure in a modern nation, or like power grids, things like this. Are these should we be as worried about these as some people would have us believe, in terms of targeted attacks that can do something like take down a hospital?
Yeah.
Or take down electricity in the wintertime?
Yes. We have seen attacks against the power grids in the European Union.
Yeah.
And it is possible. There is a lot. So at the moment, we do see it's still money driven. So I think we are lucky, I would say, because the most attacks we see are money driven attacks. They want to get some money out of it. If we would see attacks that would be just to damage something, we would see a different kind of attacks, and that would probably be more risky for us as a society.
Easier to understand the motivation from everyone's point of view if you're just looking for some sort of ransom, as opposed to like encrypting data and throwing away the key and claiming.
Hacktivism is not that. I mean, it's still active, but it's not on the forefront. Forefront is still money, ransom, getting something out of it. Yeah.
And where do you rank New Zealand in terms of our defenses?
Oh, well, I think New Zealand is really good in terms of technology.
Okay.
So we are quite often the playground for the vendors to try something out, which is good. We lacking in policies, procedures, and frameworks. So businesses do not implement frameworks as much or have policies as much. And that creates this gray area where the employee doesn't know what's right and what's wrong. And then they fall back to common sense. But the common sense, especially in cybersecurity, is really very different from person to person. So that makes it very challenging to have a really overarching cybersecurity strategy. So we do need to do more in the area of policies and procedures.
And do you think there's a lot of like ambulance at the bottom of the cliff stuff? When something happens, then everyone perks up and they think, hey, maybe we should.
Very reactive.
Very reactive. Yeah. And like, surely you've been following various news stories like the DHB hack from a year, 18 months ago, and things like this.
Yeah.
So like, it's my point here is that it's like it's relevant. It's here.
It is here. Yeah.
In our own neighborhood.
We just had it not long ago that we had another incident. So yeah, it is definitely here.
Yeah.
We are physically maybe far away from everyone else.
Yeah.
But, in the digital world, we are just maybe 180 milliseconds away from Russia or from China. So it's not that far, actually.
Yeah, when you consider, when you think about it like that, how you can route information halfway around the globe in 180 milliseconds. Yeah. Okay, and so was that your first foray into search, which you then are doing search now, which we'll talk about, or was that just like a side project that you needed to do for your product, and then you had those skills and you're moving forward?
No, that was my first venture into the search and creating my own search engine, or creating a search engine, developing a search engine. And it's one of the core products. So it was, it was basically one of the core products of darkscope, to make the services darkscope delivers possible. So I got really deep into the search engine and how to create them and what need to be considered.
And have you been following along with BlockchainLand at the time, or is that a more recent?
I have followed up with blockchain technology, yes, but I haven't been in crypto market or anything like that at that point in time. No.
Yeah. So then, how do you get from building your own search, creating a company, having clients, being successful, to this whole decentralized version of it.
Yeah. So I wanted to do a search engine that is different to what we are known to. And I basically started talking to Gareth. And Gareth was the person who brought the crypto and blockchain side closer to the search engine.
Gareth, your co-CEO.
Yeah, co-CEO and co-founder, Gareth Evans. So we both were then working on, okay, how can we make... I told him about the idea that I want to do a search engine and it should be decentralized. And I also want to do creating the index and stuff like that. So that was what I talked about him. We had already the name. That was something I found or I wanted to have. But that's what it is. And then we started working on it.
So what is Timpi? And what was the name?
Timpi was the name. From
where does that come from?
It comes from, I think, Filipino and means self-control or taking back control.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So Matimpi is a variation of it, but yeah, I'm not a language expert.
All right, taking back control then.
Yeah.
So I use search every day, like a lot of people. And, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm frustrated. Sometimes I switch up my version that I'm using. So if I were interested in taking back control, like where do I even start? Because you look at Google, right? And they're everywhere. They're massive.
Yes.
There's nothing bigger than they've had this stranglehold on the market for a long time. And so what are my alternatives and how do you even go about like addressing that and tackling that market?
Yeah, I think we need to maybe start with what is a search engine.
Sure.
Because there is a little bit of misconception. So we have only 6 indexes worldwide. So a web index is basically the inventory of the internet. And we have Google, Bing, Baidu, Yandex, and now Timpi, who have their own web scale index. So this index is the base for if you search for something, it will be searched in this index. So if you look at other search engines like DuckDuckGo, they utilize Bing as their data source, and then they deliver the results out of Bing's index. When we started Timpi, we were sure that we can't just utilize someone else's index because we won't solve the problem.
So that would involve like paying Bing to use their search.
Paying Bing to use their search, but also on our side, what we wanted to do is we wanted to deliver unbiased information. So if you use someone else's index, you don't have control over their search algorithms. That means it won't be unbiased. So that was one of the first things we developed or we designed was basically the index. How can we create an index that is decentralized? And that was the first step we did, actually.
To go back and talk about a few more things here about what happens in search. So you need an index. So when you search for something, it's not possible to actually search within all these web pages as you are searching. So they get indexed in advance.
Yeah.
And, to my mind, this requires like a massive data center to require an index of all the information. Is that right?
It requires a lot of computing power, yes.
A lot of computing power. And so, I mean, one of my questions when I was talking about search was like how, aside from PageRank, which started a long time ago, how did all of the search accrue with just so few providers in terms of the index? Like, is it that because it's difficult?
It is difficult and relatively expensive if you do it on a centralized approach. So if you say, as you said, you need a data center that costs you a couple of million, and then you don't have a customer yet. So you already spent a lot of money into the data center, and then you have to run the data center, and then you start creating your index. So that's a very inefficient way because you have a lot of upfront cost.
Yeah.
And that's what it's keeping a lot of businesses who tried in the past to create an index from being successful because the cost was just too high. They always tried it in a very centralized way. And that was one of the challenges we solved with our decentralization because we do not need to have a data center. We don't have a data center.
You don't have a data center.
No.
Okay. And so like DuckDuckGo, they're sort of championing this idea of privacy as well.
Yeah.
And Are they? They must be. Do they advertise that they use Bing's search results and they don't do their own?
They don't advertise it, but they don't hide it either.
Okay.
So it's, it's, I think for someone who is in this area is common knowledge.
Yep.
And yes, they do have their story around that is we protect your privacy because we don't track you as Bing would do. They do have now admitted that they are sending some information back to Bing about the user.
Yep.
But all in all, they are pretty good from the messaging point of view. It doesn't solve the bias, but it does protect you partially in terms of your privacy. But they have quite good success. I mean, even if you look, they have something around 0.8% market share, which does not sound a lot. But if you look at the entire market size, they are valued at $1 billion.
Okay.
So they make, I think, about $100 million in revenue. So it's even though they have a very small portion of the internet or of the market share, they are very successful.
Right. Compare with Google last year, $224 billion in advertising revenue, and presumably the ad revenue is tied to the search engine. Is that how that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got only a few players in search, and now we've got Timpi. How are you doing it without a data center, without all this upfront cost and hardware?
Yeah. So we utilize our community. Basically, people can run our software. So we have developed software. We have 4 different software packages, you can say, for 4 different roles. And people can run our software. It runs on any Windows machine. It runs on a Linux. We have about 1,800 beta testers, 1,800 to 2,000 beta testers right now. Most of them are in the area of collecting. So that's the going out and creating our index or getting the information for our index. And they run it on their own home computer. They have maybe a cloud computer. And that's how we create our own index.
So these people, just like running Bitcoin Core node software, they download the package, and then from there, is it like hands off? And in their downtime, or in their personal downtime, whenever their computer is running, it's going out and crawling. Is that what it's doing?
Yeah.
And then does this create how many? 1,800?
We have at the moment around 1,800. We don't. So I think the network in beta ran with 500 collectors, and we were able to get 2 billion pages per week to our index. So that's if in comparison, Bing's index is something around 5 billion pages.
Okay,
the numbers vary, and Google's index is around 15 billion pages. And in our beta phase, we were able to collect 2 billion pages per week. Of course, there are some where we have to go more often and stuff like that. But
so that sounds quite good. That sounds like
it does work.
It does work. And like in terms of coordination, how do you get 1,800 nodes? How do you get them all to coordinate their index together so that you have like results that are speedy like we expect?
Yes. So besides the collector, which is the crawling, we have the Guardian. That is our storage. So we store the information also completely decentralized. So members of the community run computers and give us storage space. Then we have the GeoCore. And the GeoCore is the central coordination part in the entire network. So what we have developed is a network protocol. We call it TAP. So this network protocol allows the network not only to run smoothly, but it also grows autonomously. I think I can talk hours about that, but it's basically the GeoCores, and another part in the GeoCore is called Coordinator, is taking care of coordinating all the collectors, guardians, and everything together, and make sure that the latency is very low.
Yeah.
I mean, if you search for something, you don't want to wait minutes for it. So every time you search something on Timpi, you will basically hit the next GeoCore, and the GeoCore knows the next storage node where to ask for information.
Okay.
So in the beta testing we do right now, we have a response time of around 800 milliseconds. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer, 1400 milliseconds, but that is actually on par with what you see on Google. So it was important for us to have not only the decentralized way and the philosophy behind Timpi, but also to have the similar user experience.
That's right. It's great to have a decentralized search index, right? But if you can't search for what you want to eat for dinner before dinner time, then it doesn't help, right? Yeah. Okay, so 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second, and you're getting results under or well under that.
Yeah.
I remember years ago when Google started posting up how long search results took, and it would be like kind of interesting for a little while, but it always returned results incredibly fast. So I was always wondering why they still displayed like that information about how long it took them to return.
Yeah.
Same thing with like number of hits. I was like, I don't care if there's 1.2 million,
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But they have gotten slower. I don't know if you noticed, but
I haven't.
They have been on 400 milliseconds for a long, long time.
Okay.
And now they are up to 6, 7, 8 as well, which is interesting.
Okay.
But it might be the entire analytics they have to run in parallel, and so they have gotten a little bit slower.
Okay.
I mean, they are still blinding fast. So.
This is where you're comparing your return result time.
Yeah.
And that also is comparable. And so, like in terms of like the messaging and the packet transfer overhead, it still seems to me like a whole heap. Did you like write software to organize all of this together?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have everything is developed in-house.
Yeah.
And even the network protocol is unique in its kind, because it's so in order for us to have a decentralization, we need to manage the growth. So how do we grow a network that is completely decentralized? And we also need to make sure that we keep a balance between, for example, we can't afford to have 10,000 crawlers and no storage where to put it.
Yep.
So the network, the TED network issues or allows new nodes into the network where it is needed and when it is needed. And that does it completely on its own. There's no human interference.
And that's a uniquely decentralized problem to have, because Bing knows when they're going to be increasing their capacity.
Yeah, and they slap a new server on the data center, but we just can't have that in this way.
When you come out of beta, are you going to be like limiting how many people can join, or like how far out have you tested? How many people do you either need to run a good index, or do you want to run?
Yeah, we do have it's part of our business plan, where we actually see, okay, where do we want to be and what time frame? So if we want to hit 5 billion pages in terms of index size, what is it we need to do to get there? And we have that in there, and our plan is for the next 6 years, what we have outlined so far. And so we end up with around 6,000 or 7,000 nodes in our network.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah, but there are decentralized projects out there that are way larger than that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And are you already global, or are you like restricted to New Zealand in any way?
No, we are completely global. Yeah. Even our team is global. So we have team members from United States, Canada, Dubai, Bali. I'm jealous. New Zealand, of course. So,
right.
Yeah.
And so decentralized search. So I'm guessing it works.
Yep, it does work.
Maybe I should have asked that first. Does it work?
It does work. It does work very well. Yes.
It does work very well. All right. So your version of search works very well. We've got 5 others that also work.
Yeah.
Talk about bias. So this seems like almost a bit of an impossible problem. As soon as you bring up the idea of bias, you're thinking like, oh, there's a human perspective that's involved here. Perhaps you can tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, personally, I have noticed this. If you put in a bit of effort to get off of Google and try the other search options, you do tend to see different results.
Yes.
Now, maybe I'm not searching for extremely biased things, but how do you address this? What are you doing to do that?
I mean, first of all, what we mean with bias is one bias is the financial background. So if you look into most search engines, it is financial driven how they show the first page of results. It's basically who pays most. So if we remove, or when we removed that out of the occasion in Timpi, because we don't have that, it helps a lot, because then we don't need to take care of showing the best paying customer first, that we don't have that. And then we have other biased, and we follow the principle that we say a search engine should not have an opinion. So that means
That sounds terrific.
Yeah. It's, I think, when we go back a decade or so, Google tend to not have an opinion. It just, evolved in that. Early days from Google was really something what Timpi is now. They just lost somehow their way. It's, we don't want to force someone into believing something. We just want to present all information available. That's it. So our algorithm is mainly driven through when you search for something, what is the most likely page that will help you with the information in terms of just content driven. So there is no bias in terms of, is that a very large page that pays us a lot of ad revenue or is it whatever? We don't have that at all. So that helps us a lot. We also have a governance process that helps us deciding on stuff that we need to be decided on. So when we talk about unbiased, it's in reality, it's a society bias, because you can't be really unbiased. Someone has to make some call. And instead of us in an office just making a call, we just go out to the community and say, hey, we have to make a call in this, on this topic. What is it you want? So that makes it a society bias, which is a lot better than just a small group of people.
Right. Okay. And how do you go about like testing this? How do you go about like doing some A/B testing, or being like, do we have it right, or are you not even worried about having your bias in check and the community is going to somehow figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about bias, it's around what is it we want, we will not show. So it's not about how we show or how we rate it. As I said, the rating is really, or the ranking is really based on relevance. There's no bias in there. But if we then go further and say we can't show some content, obviously, for legal reasons and stuff like that, and there might be content we don't want to show or the community doesn't want to see. And that's where we have a governance process that helps us to make this kind of decisions. So there is a lot of ethics in a search engine. And now, who decides on this ethics? In all centralized search engines, it's a group of people, ethics committee, the board, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
On Timpi, it's everyone who wants to have a say can basically tell us how is Timpi developing in terms of its ethics, because we don't want to make this call.
Yeah, you said like 10 years ago, Google was maybe without bias, and then it got away from them, right? So if it got away from them,
yep.
I view this as like it could have gotten away from a bunch of people sitting in a room being like, this is okay, this is not okay, but it feels like it got away from them like at the machine level, at the machine learning algorithm level, in order to produce results.
Yep.
And you see this in a lot of social media, right? And so now to try to counteract this sort of ghost in the machine, you see on Twitter, or I guess on X now, you see like users wanted to provide you some context to this tweet. And so would there be any like contextual additions in a Timpi search? Maybe that's not necessarily a good question, but like how do you see it evolving?
Yeah, so we do have the ability, or the users have the ability to do this contextual as well, and can basically write comments or rate pages on our search engine. So you see what page is, well regarded and which is not. That's one part where we have the ability to add more content to it, basically, or more context to a search result.
Do you think that this is going to be forever required now, search going forward, or things like this, all these considerations, contextual analysis? What about safe mode? Is there a safe mode? Like browsing didn't used to have a safe mode.
Yeah, there's no safe mode yet.
Okay.
We might consider a safe mode where you can just exclude pictures you don't want to see. That's for sure. That will probably come.
I mean, that seems like a fairly simple thing these days to add in pornographic content in terms of image analysis can be filtered out. And that sort of thing. So where do I go to get my like pro-Russian view or to get my like Russian English translated viewpoint on the conflict there? Because this would be one of the main areas where like American-centric tech would have their own specific viewpoint and they'd actively be filtering.
I mean, you see, as I said, we don't filter we don't filter anything. So when we collect our index, we will grab pages from Russia, Asia, everywhere. And if they are in the right language that you speak, English, for example, then we will show you all the results. And then the algorithm will decide based on the content and the relevancy to your search query if this page is interesting for you. We don't care about where it is located, actually. So that makes it then you do see the Western point of view. Let's put it that way. If we look at the Russian and Ukraine crisis, Western point of view, you will certainly also see the Russian point of view, because we can't differentiate between those two in our algorithms.
Okay. And am I just like going down a path that doesn't really matter? Are you folks actively interested in this sort of thing? Or are you more keen on having like the technology work the way that you intend it to work?
I mean, really what we want is, and that's the search is just the first one. I mean, if you look into what we have is our index. Index is our core of Timpi, because that allows us to do a lot more than just having a search engine. So what we want is we want to change how we access information today. If you look into how it is today, is you rely on the big guys. So if we look into, let's say we want to create a large language model. Let's go into AI. Where do you get your data sets from? It's only the big guys who have the data sets. So you rely on those data sets or on the pre-formatted data sets, but there's no alternative. These data sets are also biased. We know because the search engine is biased. That's not a secret. So we can provide you with a data set out of our index that is completely unbiased because our index is unbiased.
Okay, I mean that's very interesting.
So that's the other side or other side of the coin where we can utilize the index in many ways, and we want to really change how we access information in terms of it should be unbiased, it should be not tampered with, it should be just the information, and then you have the opportunity to create your own opinion out of all the information you get. So we want to remove as much as possible the echo chamber philosophy we have.
How are you going to make any money? Business model time.
Business model time.
How is Timpi going to keep food on your table?
So we do have advertisement, but that's outside and besides the search results. So it doesn't interfere with the search results. So we do have advertisement. The benefit of running advertisement on Timpi is, first of all, of course, we are the new kid on the block, so we are cheaper. But also, for someone who advertises with us, he advertises in a platform that is unbiased and ethical, and that's a huge benefit today.
Sure, that's a hot buzzword, right? Yeah.
It is a hot buzzword, and it is beneficial, and that's where we can attract advertisers that use our platform to have their advertisement. It's still targeted advertisement, but we have a complete different approach where we do not target the user in terms of targeted advertisement. We do it in a complete new and different way, which still allows targeted and very efficient advertisement without using the user's information, because we don't store any user information.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I guess really that's what we were getting at when we said that they lost their way, right? Is having an account tied to the search results that are then targeting you.
Yeah.
You said no ads in results. What do you mean by that?
So if you run your query, and you get your search results, there won't be any advertisement, but there will be advertisement on the right-hand side, for example, of the web page itself.
All right, so it's on the page.
It's on the page, but not interfering with the search results itself.
Okay.
And will not We don't have ranking, as I said, ranking for products who pays the most. I think the other one you can also say, which is really cool, for Google, you as a user are the product. You are not the customer. So Google uses you as their product. And on Timpi, you are basically our customer. And that's a huge difference in terms of how we treat you.
Yeah, it sounds good. Let's go for it. Let's bring it on. So spillover from business model, how are you going to make money? How are you going to incentivize me to sign up to run your software?
Yeah, we do utilize blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Okay.
So we have our own token that runs on Utaro, which is a blockchain, layer 1 blockchain. And users will be reimbursed or will earn Timpi tokens, basically, or Utaro tokens.
So there's this token economy going on.
Yeah, there's a token economy going on where when they run our software, they can they collect tokens, and then they can use these tokens for either way, sell them or do buy other services or anything from it. Yeah.
And that's on Cosmos? I read in your paper?
We're running on the Cosmos SDK, which is the layer 1, you can say. And then we have our own layer 0, and we have our own layer 1 native blockchain, or we utilize Utaro.
Right. Okay. So you use the Cosmos SDK and then your layer 1, but it's also tied into the Cosmos ecosystem?
Yes. So all Cosmos blockchains have the ability to connect to each other via the IBC. It's an interchain. It's a bridge between blockchains. So we can connect to all other blockchains within the Cosmos ecosystem.
How's Cosmos getting on these days? I haven't checked in with them in a while.
They have really good release just 2 weeks ago where they have a shared trust and stuff like that. Really interesting.
All right. Hopefully we're coming out of the bottom of the market and people will get a little bit more excited about anything other than Ethereum layer 2s. That seems to be taking off. Well, why did you choose to do it that way with the blockchain?
With Cosmos?
Yeah.
We were looking at Ethereum as well at some point, but we didn't like the idea at the end of being a layer 2. So basically, if you, as a layer 2, as a token on Ethereum, you rely on the governance process of the layer 1, which is Ethereum.
Yep.
So there's not much you can do in terms of governance. Yes, you can smart contract your way through some stuff, but really, if you want to have the freedom of having your own custom-built blockchain, you need to go layer 1 yourself. And that was why we went with Cosmos. Cosmos' view of blockchain is really custom-built blockchain for every application, because it does make sense. It's then hard-coded into the binary. You don't need to work with smart contracts and, do funny stuff with it.
And so I did see your logo on Cosmos page. Do you know how many they're running these days?
Not off the top of my mind, no.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a big list.
35, 40, I don't know. I think active ones and same amount in testnet as well.
I want to shift gears here a little bit, looking at the clock. I read this, you wrote about AI, which I know you're also quite interested in. Some people are afraid that Skynet might become a reality in the future. To prevent this happening, we need to introduce an AI code of ethics, which might be hard to do. Brings up questions as who defines those ethics and who should enforce them, and we need to answer these questions first. And I thought it was quite interesting that you wrote this in 2019 on LinkedIn. How have things changed? You did. It's still there.
Okay, cool.
In terms of people are still afraid of Skynet.
Yes.
And there's been this past year a ton of chatter about ethics.
Yeah.
Do you think things have changed a lot since ChatGPT and so on?
It's gotten worse. I mean, it's really ChatGPT, and a lot of people. So first of all, when we look at ChatGPT, people think that we are at the state where AI understands you, but that's not really the case. And I think we need to realize that, and that will also solve some of the issues when we talk about ChatGPT, for example. We see it does give you wrong answers, but it also declines to give you some answers. So now, if we think about why does it decline it, it's because someone did manually decide this should be declined. And that's where I see the challenge right now, because we still haven't done the ethics. We still haven't done a really wide framework that is publicly accepted in terms of how do we create AIs, especially large language models, but also how do we train and tell them what not to do. And that's the bigger challenge right now. And it hasn't changed a lot, unfortunately. There's still not, governments are very slow sometimes when it comes to regulations. So they are 5, 6, 7 years behind. And the industry itself is not working on that right now to really follow a common framework or something like that.
Would you guess or posit that there's too many humans in that loop for doing their training? Too many humans that then either unconsciously or consciously are bringing their bias to the situation?
Yeah, it's that. And as I said, we don't have even the humans who work on AI right now, what is it they should do? And it comes back. If we started with cybersecurity. If you don't have policies and procedures, you go into common sense. But common sense is different from person to person. And that's what people do in AI right now as well. They go with common sense, with their own common sense. So that's the bias we have, because we don't have policies and procedures and frameworks in place. And that's why I really ended up here, because of it all comes back to frameworks. And I started my career with frameworks.
Okay. Here we are still banging on about them.
Yes, still 25 years later, we're still banging on with it. But hey, we are working on it.
Doing some interesting stuff along the way. You folks are also dabbling in AI?
Yep. Yes.
So how's that going to integrate? How's that going to help my search or whatever it is that you're up to?
We already do. As you mentioned, identifying photos that you don't want to see, it's an AI model.
Yeah.
Helping you in terms of what we do is word vectors, for example. So if you search for something, what is the neighboring word that you might be interested as well?
What's that called?
Word vector.
Word vectors. Okay.
Yeah. You create word families. So cat, dog, pet, as an example. So that's where you can then, someone searches for a dog, for example, he might have a general interest in pets, and that helps us in terms of the advertisement, but also you as a user in terms of your search experience. Because if you search for something that we don't know about, we might know the overlaying word or group.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. And because you're not piggybacking off someone else, you're doing this yourself.
We have to do it ourselves, yeah. So we basically have to do, and that's an AI. We have a large language model. I can't talk about it yet.
All right.
But there are some other AI models we also use and utilize. So it's we either way train them ourselves entirely. We used a pre-trained model partially and enhance them with our own training.
Yep.
It's quite commonly done today. Use a pre-trained model if it fits your purpose, and then you specialize it in certain tasks. Yeah.
All right. When can we see more?
So we will have our beta release next month.
Okay.
Of the search engine, Timpi.com.
So we're just in August. Is that September then?
It's end of September. Is planned.
Okay.
Yep. So end of September, we will have our public release beta. It's still beta, but it's public release. And then you can go onto Timpi.com and give it a go.
Give it a go. I got some rapid fire questions for you before we go.
Sure.
Google or Bing? You have to choose.
Who's worse or who's best?
Who do you set to your default when you have to choose?
Google.
For better or for worse?
Yeah.
And are we anywhere near a singularity with LLMs and AI?
No.
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 And number 3, who is Satoshi?
Satoshi. Oh dear. Yes, I know the name. Bitcoin
guy, yeah.
Bitcoin maker, the maker of Bitcoin, allegedly.
Allegedly. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto?
I don't know.
All right, neither do I. Joerg, thank you very much for coming in. All right, I'll mark that down. You're off the list.
Yes.
There we go. Now Joerg. Cheers. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, folks. Look out for the next episode of the Blockchain New Zealand podcast, probably in the same spot you found this one. Cheers.